Welcome to another episode of our weekly meal prep series. I am very excited about today's menu because it is all inspired by the yummy flavors of the South. To kick things off this week, we are whipping up a big batch of red beans and rice, one of my all-time favorite Southern dishes. Now, I'm doing this in a Dutch oven. You could totally do this in a saucepan if you wanted to, or you could even do this in a slow cooker. That would work as well. So this week we are starting off with some sausage that I've taken out of the casings. I'm using some pork breakfast sausage. You could really use any kind of sausage you want. You could use turkey or chicken or even vegetarian sausage. I love that idea because you really could keep this completely vegetarian. In my Dutch oven, I've got some oil heating up in a pan and I'm just going to brown my sausage. I'm going to use my spoon to break the sausage into little pieces, and then once it's cooked, I'm going to remove it from the pan and saute my vegetables. So I'm just adding a little more oil to my pan, and then I'm going to toss in some sweet onion, some celery, and some bell pepper. I'm using both green and red. You can use any color bell pepper you like. I'm going to let these veggies saute for 4 or 5 minutes or until they've softened up completely. Then I'm going to add a couple cloves of minced garlic and some Cajun seasoning. Now, I'm using my homemade Cajun seasoning. I've left the recipe in the description box below if you want to make your own, or you could use the store-bought kind. That would work just as well. I'm going to let my garlic and my spices toast for about 30 seconds, and then I'm going to add my red kidney beans, some long grain white rice, and my pork back into my Dutch oven. And then I'm going to top it all off with some broth. I'm using veggie broth in this recipe. You could totally use chicken broth if that's what you have on hand. You want to give it a good stir and make sure that all of your rice is submerged, and then you're just going to turn your heat down to low, put the cover on your pot, and let it cook for between 20 and 25 minutes or until all of the water has been absorbed. Once the water's been absorbed, this stuff is ready to eat. This yummy dish will last in your fridge for between 3 and 4 days, or you can make a huge batch and store it in your freezer and just reheat it as you need it. Now let's talk about our greens for the week. This week it is all about collard greens. Now you could do the same thing with some kale or some Swiss chard, but I love collard greens because they are loaded with nutrients, particularly with calcium. And now you know. So I'm starting with some butter heating up in a skillet, and to that I'm going to add some garlic. I'm gonna let that garlic go for about 10 or 15 seconds, and then I'm going to add my collard greens. All I've done is just remove the stem and given them a really rough chop. I'm going to toss my greens in my butter and garlic and then put the lid on until my greens have wilted. Once they've wilted, I'm just gonna season them with salt and pepper and they are ready to eat. I love sauteed greens like this because you can put them in all sorts of dishes, like pasta dishes or scrambled eggs, or even in that yummy red beans and rice we just made. How great would that be? Next up, we have some roasted sweet potatoes. All I've done is peeled and diced 2 sweet potatoes, and I'm just going to toss them in some olive oil, some salt and pepper, and I'm just going to break up some fresh rosemary. This is totally an optional step, but I love the taste of rosemary with sweet potato. I think it's a great flavor combination. We're going to toss these until our potatoes are well coated, and then we're going to pour them onto a baking sheet and pop them into the oven at 350 degrees for between 35 and 45 minutes, or until your potatoes are soft and yummy. Next up, we are going to prepare our salad for the week, and this week it is all about a sweet corn salad. I'm using canned corn in this recipe because that's what I had on hand, but you could just as easily use frozen corn that you've cooked off, no problem. So, to our corn, we want to add some flavor and some crunch. We're going to do that by adding some red bell pepper, some beautiful chopped celery, and some finely diced red onion. We're going to dress this salad really simply with just a little bit of white wine vinegar and some olive oil and some salt and pepper. We're going to finish it off with one of my favorite flavors, finely chopped fresh basil. All you need to do is give this a stir and it'll last in your fridge for 5 or 6 days. How yummy is that? For our fresh veggies this week, I've got some red bell pepper, some carrots, and some fresh broccoli. I'm also going to prepare some beautiful orange slices because I love having fresh fruit that's ready to eat. Finally, we are wrapping things up today with a little bit of decadence in the form of my unbelievably delicious cheddar jalapeno cornbread muffins. So we're gonna start by mixing up our dry ingredients. So I'm going to be combining some cornmeal with some all-purpose flour, a little bit of sugar, some baking powder, and a sprinkling of salt. I'm going to whisk this together very well, and then I'm going to set it aside. In a smaller bowl, I'm combining 2 eggs, some milk, and some melted butter, and I'm going to whisk this together really well and then mix it into my dry ingredients. Finally, I'm going to start building all sorts of flavor into these muffins. So I'm going to be adding some sharp white cheddar that I've just shredded up, and to that I'm going to add some green onion and some finely minced jalapeno. I'm going to scoop my batter into a well-greased muffin tin and then garnish each with a little slice of jalapeno. How pretty are those? Into the oven, these are going to go at 350 degrees for between 15 and 17 minutes, or until your muffins are set. I hope you'll give this week's menu a try, and if you do, be sure to tweet or Instagram me a photo, because you know I love seeing what you're coming up with in your very own kitchens. And don't miss Monday's episode of Lighten Up, because we are creating a lightened up version of a Southern classic, pulled pork sandwiches. And finally, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to The Domestic Geek, because there's lots more deliciousness where this came from.